You have probably believed for most of your life that for things to move in the right direction, you must keep acting and keep control over everything. You try to hold a relationship together. You try to force a career into a certain shape, and you try to make life unfold according to the plans you have drawn for yourself. But the harder you push, the heavier everything begins to feel, as if life itself were quietly resisting you. Carl Jung believed that behind this impulse lies the ego, the part of the mind that always wants certainty and safety. Yet beneath the ego, there is a deeper layer of the soul, where intuition, the unconscious, and what many traditions call the guidance of God, quietly operate. When you try to force life according to your own will, you are often moving against that deeper current. And when that happens, life begins to send you clear signals. Everything slows down, the energy inside you fades, and plans that once seemed certain suddenly collapse. According to Jung, those moments are not always failures, but the way life forces you to stop so that you can finally listen. So here you are going to see why the wisest thing you can do is sometimes not to try harder, but to stop forcing things and allow God to guide your life. And perhaps when you understand this, you will look at what is happening to you right now in a completely different way. It begins with one of the ego's oldest illusions, the belief that action is the same as safety, that to do something, anything, is to stay in control. Most of us grow up believing that whenever there is a problem, we must do something about it immediately. When a relationship begins to crack, you try to speak more, explain more, and repair more. When a career path becomes unclear, you rush to find a new plan, a new goal, a new strategy. And when anxiety appears inside you, you try at once to fill it with action. In the mind of the ego, action equals safety, because doing something, whether right or wrong, makes you feel in control of your life. But from the perspective of analytical psychology, this is one of the deepest illusions a person can live inside. As Jung wrote, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. Instead of stopping to listen to what is happening within you, the ego chooses the easier path of more action and more control. It creates a brief feeling of being proactive, when often it is only a subtle way of avoiding the truth of the soul. I once knew a woman named Sophia, the kind of person everyone thought was endlessly energetic and driven. She always had a plan for everything, and whenever life felt empty, she would sign up for a course, plan a trip, or start a new project. Her schedule was never still. But late one evening, she admitted something she had never told anyone before. She confessed that she was secretly afraid of empty moments, and that whenever there was nothing to do, a vague uneasiness would rise in her, so she quickly searched for something new to fill it. Her story reflects what so many people live without ever naming it. You keep doing something not always because it is needed, but because busyness makes you feel safe, and the ego believes that if you stop, everything will collapse. Like a deep lake whose surface is constantly disturbed, your soul cannot show you its depths while you keep stirring the water. The harder you stir, the more turbid it becomes. Only when the surface grows still can you begin to see what truly lies beneath. Jung understood that the soul is not a rational machine. Beneath your consciousness, there is a deeper layer holding intuition, symbols, and a wisdom the ego cannot command. And for many people, this is exactly where they sense the quiet presence of God. So the safety you are looking for does not come from controlling everything. It comes from your ability to listen to yourself, because life does not always require more action. Sometimes the most necessary thing is to pause long enough to understand why you are trying so hard in the first place. Once you begin to see that constant action does not bring clarity, you cross into a quieter experience that is much harder to understand. It is the moment when the soul withdraws its energy and everything in your life suddenly stops flowing. Plans that once moved smoothly begin to slow down, work becomes heavier, and the efforts that once brought results now seem to lead nowhere. It feels like trying to row a boat on a river that has run dry. In the novel The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, the old fisherman, Santiago has days when he sails out and catches nothing at all. The other fishermen begin to whisper that his luck has run out. Yet Santiago does not panic, and he does not throw his nets everywhere in desperation. He understands that the sea has its own rhythm, that some days the ocean is full of fish, and some days it is completely silent, and that no fisherman can force the ocean to give him what he wants. Your inner life moves according to a similar rhythm. There are phases when everything flows and opportunities appear, and other phases when that same flow suddenly slows. In those moments, the ego almost always misunderstands and insists that you simply need to try harder. But in Jungian psychology, your life is not governed by willpower alone. Beneath your consciousness, there is a deeper center where intuition, meaning, and your true direction are held. When you move closer to that path, energy tends to appear naturally. But when the ego forces life toward a direction that no longer suits you, the first thing to disappear is not opportunity, it is energy. As Jung wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, love is lacking." This rarely happens all at once. It begins very subtly, with a little fatigue and a quiet loss of enthusiasm, until everything feels heavier than before, even though you are doing the very same things. Like a tree planted in soil that does not suit it, you can water it more and feed it more and care for it with all your attention, and still it grows weakly. Not because you are caring for it wrongly, but because that ground was never meant for it. The moment it is moved to the right soil, it begins to grow almost on its own. From Jung's perspective, when the soul withdraws its energy, it is not punishing you. It is protecting you, trying to stop you before you travel even further down a path that was never yours. So if you have ever lived through a season when everything in your life suddenly slowed down like this, leave a comment and simply write, "I have been there." Sometimes a few honest words are enough to remind you that many other people are walking through the very same passage. Long before everything truly stops, the slowing of your life announces itself in smaller ways, in signals that are easy to ignore. The slowing rarely arrives all at once. Life usually sends you many smaller signals first, and the real problem is that most people either do not notice them or notice them and choose to look away. From Jung's perspective, the psyche is always seeking to preserve its balance. So when the ego pulls your life too far from its true path, the unconscious begins to send signs. At first they are gentle, a fatigue without any clear cause, a loss of interest in things that once excited you, or a vague discomfort that rises whenever you think about a certain direction. But because the ego always wants to stay in control, it explains those signals away with the same simple sentence, that you just need to try a little harder. As Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." What he meant is that if you refuse to face the uncomfortable signals of your inner world, they will not quietly disappear. Instead, they will grow stronger until you can no longer ignore them. A viewer once left a comment that has stayed with me. He said that he had worked at the same job for 8 years, and that for the last 2 of those years, he woke up every morning feeling heavy. He assumed he was merely tired, so he tried to work even harder. But his body began to react with sleepless nights and constant headaches, and eventually he had to leave that job out of pure exhaustion. Looking back, he realized he had known for a long time that it was no longer right for him. Like the dashboard of a car whose engine has begun to fail, your life does not shut down the instant something goes wrong. First, a small warning light comes on, and if you notice it, you can stop and check. But if you keep driving as though nothing is happening, that small problem grows into a failure large enough to force the car to a halt. Your soul works in much the same way. It begins with a feeling of discomfort, deepens into prolonged fatigue, and eventually grows into a real crisis of burnout or lost direction. Not because life wants to punish you, but because the unconscious is trying to make the ego finally pay attention. The deeper lesson is not to live in fear of every uncomfortable feeling. It is to learn to hear the small signals while they are still quiet before they become loud knocks at your door. When you learn to listen early, you often do not need a great crisis in order to change. When the small signals of the soul have been ignored for too long, life sometimes has to create a far larger interruption, a collapse that feels, in hindsight, like God quietly dismantling a path that was never yours. A job comes to an end, a relationship breaks apart, or a plan you were certain of suddenly falls to pieces. To the ego, these moments feel like nothing but loss and chaos. Yet in Jung's view, such a collapse is not always destruction. Very often, it is a deep restructuring of the soul itself. As Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." What he meant was not that you should go looking for suffering, but that real growth usually appears only after the old illusions of the ego have begun to fall away. Think of the ancient story of the phoenix, which in so many cultures is never simply reborn. Before a new cycle of life can begin, it must first pass through a complete burning. The fire consumes the old body until nothing but ashes remains, and only from those ashes does the new bird rise. The story was never a tragedy. It was always a symbol of transformation. Even modern science describes something similar. In neuroscience, when you change the way you think or learn something genuinely new, the brain has to reorganize its own connections. The old patterns weaken so that stronger new ones can form. Deep development rarely happens without some dismantling of the structure that came before. Like a house whose foundation has begun to crack, your life cannot be repaired by simply repainting the walls. Sooner or later, the whole structure becomes unsafe, and the only honest way to build something stronger is to take down the old frame and begin again from the ground. Jung called this process part of individuation, the long journey of becoming who you truly are. In that journey, the ego cannot always be a reliable guide. It must learn to release its old images of itself before it can see what it is meant to become. Like a seed that has to break open in the dark before a single green sprout can appear. Some seasons of your life must dissolve completely so that something new is finally able to grow. Thank you for walking with this story to its midpoint. If you are willing, take a moment to remember a time when something important in your life once broke apart. A job, a relationship, or a plan you trusted, and share that story in the comments. Telling it can help someone else feel less alone, and it can help you see the deeper meaning of the path you have already walked. After an old path collapses and you finally release the plans you once believed were certain, life begins to speak to you through timing and circumstance. In the quiet way many people feel God does. It begins to reveal very subtle signs, not grand miracles or obvious answers, but small coincidences that arrive exactly when you need them most. An unexpected meeting, a piece of information you overhear by chance, an opportunity that opens at the very moment you thought every door had closed. In those moments, many people begin to feel that life is quietly trying to tell them something. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence. It is when two events occur at the same time without any clear causal link between them, and yet together they carry a profound meaning for the person living through them. As Jung wrote, synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. Meaningful coincidence is always there in your life, but only those who pay attention can recognize it. Perhaps you have thought of someone you had not spoken to in a long time, and at that exact moment, your phone lit up with a message from that very person. Or perhaps you were weighing an important decision when you happened to hear a sentence, a conversation, or a passage from a book that seemed to speak directly into what you were thinking. Taken on their own, these events look like random accidents. But when they gather at the turning points of your life, they begin to feel different, as though a meaning were being sent to you. When you change on the inside and release an old belief or an old image of yourself, the world around you sometimes rearranges itself in quiet ways. Events that once seemed unrelated begin to connect, like pieces of a slowly forming picture. Like walking a road covered in fog, you cannot see the whole path ahead, only a few steps at a time. And yet, each time you keep walking, the next stretch of road gradually appears, so that when you finally look back over the long journey, you realize the most important turns came exactly when you were ready to step into them. The point is not to hunt for hidden meaning in every coincidence, but to learn to notice the moments that truly carry it. When you stop forcing everything to follow the rigid plans of the ego, you begin to see that life has always had gentle ways of guiding you, speaking not through words, but through circumstances that arrive at exactly the right time. After all the signs, the coincidences, and the unexpected doors that open along the way, you arrive at the final and quietest sign of all, an inner peace that tells you more than any outcome ever could. You begin to realize something deeper. The clearest sign that you are moving in the right direction does not usually lie in your external circumstances. It is not success, recognition, or any result that can be measured from the outside. The deepest sign tends to appear in a far quieter place, in the inner state of your own soul. As Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when you begin to move closer to that true self, a very subtle change appears inside you, a sense of peace you may never have felt before. I once sat with a man in his early 30s named Stephen, who was neatly dressed, spoke clearly, and held a job that many people would have envied. Yet, as our conversation deepened, I noticed a fatigue in his eyes that he could not quite hide. Stephen had followed his path for nearly 10 years, a path that made sense to everyone and was highly valued by the world around him. And still, he carried a quiet tension inside. But when he began to speak about the things he had once loved, about writing, about studying psychology, about working closely with people, his voice slowed down, and he seemed to touch a very real part of himself again. The soul rarely speaks to you through clear commands. It speaks instead through your inner states. When you drift too far from your true path, the psyche tends to grow tense and drained. When you move closer to what genuinely suits you, what appears is not loud excitement, but a deep and steady quietness. Like a pair of shoes that fits you perfectly, the wrong size makes every step uncomfortable even as you keep walking, while the right fit is something you hardly notice at all because you simply walk. Inner peace does not mean that life suddenly becomes easy. Your true path can still hold real challenges and real uncertainty. And yet, the inner experience changes completely, because instead of feeling that you must struggle against life, you begin to feel that you are moving with a deeper current of it. So the deepest guidance you will ever receive does not come from external noise. It comes from your ability to listen to your own inner state. When a path leaves you constantly tense and disconnected from yourself, it is often a sign that the ego is forcing your life. And when a choice brings you calm and clarity, even while it remains uncertain, it is often a sign that you are moving closer to what truly belongs to you. In the end, there is something most people only understand after many experiences. Life does not always need to be controlled by the will of the ego. The more you try to arrange everything according to your own plans, the more tense your mind becomes. But when you slow down and stop resisting the natural rhythm of life, a gentle clarity begins to appear, and within that stillness, your true path gradually reveals itself. There are moments, people, and circumstances that enter your life exactly when you need them most. Not through any obvious arrangement, but like a quiet guidance you can only recognize once you have stopped fighting to control everything. And in those rare moments of peace, you finally begin to understand a truth that is simple and yet profound. You do not have to force everything, and you can allow God to guide you. If the ideas in this video have touched something in you, take a moment to press like and to subscribe to the channel so that we can keep exploring the depths of Jungian psychology together. And remember that the great turning point of your life does not come from forcing things to happen. It comes from the moment you slow down, listen more deeply, and finally realize that your true path has been there all along, quietly waiting for you to trust it enough to follow it.